Hello, how's everyone?
We're very well, Mr. President. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's great to see you again,
It's
even
a,
if it's virtually.
it's a pleasure, no problem.
We're so grateful you took the time to do this. And just as you didn't want to spend a lot of time on a bloviating introduction, neither will I. We have here in the room a group of students who spent an entire semester concentrating intently on studying Rwanda.
Yeah.
I think these are some students who will be engaged with Rwanda for a long time. Some of them already expressed an interest in going to visit. So this is a wonderful culmination to a long and intense study of Rwanda that we've undertaken over the last semester. So the students are here and they've each prepared a question. I'm going to turn it over to our first student, if that's okay with you.
Sure, I just have to warn you, studying Rwanda is a handful, so
You know that.
yeah, okay.
Mr. President, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. My question is about your leadership style. Yeah, you ran a rebel army in the bush and now a nation. During that transition, what leadership skills did you find were transferable, and what did you have to change about the way that you led?
Well, I'm not sure what is transferable or not, but all I know is one can share one's experiences and understanding and approach to many aspects of life, as you have described. To be transferable has two parts. One is transferring, but the other one is receiving. So I'm not sure what the other one would be willing to. But the best way I can describe it is to understand the situation, talk about how you've dealt with it, how you have approached it, and maybe people can make comparison of the situation one has managed and how with other situations and circumstances. So that is the way to do it. Otherwise, I guess some things are transferable, others may not, depending on uniqueness of maybe the situation that people have managed. If there are things I could do differently, or well, I should say I don't spend much time on that. I try to see some things are already in the past. There are things you may not be able to do anything about those situations because they are in the past and they can't come back. So the focus should be on the present and the future because new problems emerge, new circumstances do also, and so that's why you try to learn from what you dealt with in the past and see whether it is applicable in the moment or not, and that's how you proceed. So I really don't take much time finding what thing in the past would I have done differently, but I look at the present and the future.
Neza murakoze cyane kuba mwaje gufatanya natwe nk'uko perezida wa repubulika y'u rwanda amazina yanjye ni Mpunza Linda nkaba ndi mu mwaka wa mbere nkaba nishimiye cyane kuba mwaje gufatanya natwe kuri uyu mugoroba. So my question is related to Rwanda's incredible, fast and progressive trajectory over the past 28 years. I'm just curious what your main priorities of the remaining 2 years you have in office, and what have been like, the main successes and frustrations throughout the past 4 years?
Well, the whole story about Rwanda, where we have come from, where we are and where we want to be. So I spend most of my time, day and night maybe, trying to figure out. But of course, when I say I, it isn't so much I. It's not me. It's many other people we have to work with, different levels, and so we fully understand where we have come from, the underlying causes of the different problems that we have to manage. So these are what, and then I've continued to try and manage that, but also back and forth with the population and citizens to understand how they feel, what they can contribute, what they think can be done to alleviate most of their problems. And that's why we have different structures and organizations to manage that. And we have to measure what has happened, where we are coming from, and how much have we done. If you look at in the area of reconciliation, have the people really come together, to what extent, and do they understand the problems of the past, and so that we uproot this kind of divisive politics that we have witnessed, not only just divisive, but costly in human life terms. And so it has to be founded, that the Rwanda model is really founded on two principles. One is our people and our history on one hand, but then it's also our future. Where do you want to go? So what so far we have done and the results we've got, I think we are on the right path in my view, and that's what the people feel, that's the feedback we get. It is work in progress, everything we are doing. So we are not where we need to be or want to be, but I think I don't find other ways of doing what we are doing to, yes.
I wanted to know what your personal priorities would be in the remaining 2 years.
My personal what?
Priorities.
The priorities have been there for a long time, so that's why I'm saying the priorities are not just one or two remaining. It's either consolidation of what we have done and found to be helpful, but otherwise the priorities have been there from the beginning up to now, even now, and we see we want a united country, we want a prosperous country, we want a country that is at peace with itself and secure and stable. So priorities come in that package. So talking about the remaining time of my office, it shouldn't stop with when I'm in the office or not. It should be continuous even after my service to my country.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Mr. President. Thank you so much for joining us. So my question relates to Rwanda's electoral process. Rwanda's electoral process has historically come under criticism for the lack of political diversity. And my question for you is, do you imagine a future in which competing political parties would campaign against each other for power in Rwandan elections? Or do you believe that would lead to more divisions and undermine national unity?
Well, first of all, some questions are not difficult, like I'm going to say, but it is hard to understand what is being asked. Electoral process has been criticized. So for what? I didn't get it. What is wrong with the electoral process, if you could mention, because our electoral process is what it is, and participation in that is what it is. So I haven't understood the standards we should be conforming to that we don't. I didn't get it.
So it's essentially the view that some believe that not enough differing political opinions have been represented in previous Rwandan elections.
Yeah, still, the measure of that, is it by number of political parties that participate, or is it by what? This is what I'm failing to understand. That's why I'm not giving you a very good answer, maybe that you wish for. But Rwandans haven't complained about it. So these ones you are talking about who are complaining, I don't know. Is there a global commission that puts a standard to what type of elections countries should have, and we have scored low on that, and even then, nothing has been communicated to us if it was there. So that's what I don't understand.
Hi, Mr. President. Thank you for speaking with us. During the COVID pandemic, tourism was one of the hardest hit industries worldwide, and given that tourism plays a significant role in Rwanda's economy and was growing steadily before the pandemic, what is the government planning to do to support tourism in the aftermath of the pandemic?
Yeah, it's true. First of all, tourism has been a fast-growing sector of our economy, and it was hit badly, of course, during the pandemic. But we have also now started seeing good recovery, and in fact, we are more or less around 80% of what it used to be before COVID. What we have done during that time of COVID and towards the end, now COVID is at minimum. Positivity rate in the country is between 0 and 0.1% currently. So we thank God that's the way it is now, watching to see the trend in the country and around. But so far, so good. So what we did, in fact, we put a recovery fund. Government mobilized a recovery fund for different sectors, and one of the sectors that was targeted was tourism, and they benefited from that fund. We gave to the struggling institutions of tourism sector, the hotels, the different businesses, and we've kept them afloat. They seem to be doing fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for speaking with us. My question is about the Congo. So, with President Tshisekedi's election 4 years ago, there was a major shift in the Congo's leadership. Some have noted that there's been a more conciliatory tone between Rwanda and the Congo, but there's still certainly lingering disagreements. Would you say that his election, his leadership in the Congo has been for the better with regards to Rwanda's relationship with the Congo? Or would you say that there are ongoing problems with the direction that the Congo is heading still?
I think things have gotten much better from the previous administration in DRC, in Congo, and the current one. And the main reason is there is good communication. At least we discuss the problems that are there as we understand them, each side, and try to look for a way forward. So far, the progress is good, and trying to deal with the problems that are still lingering on. Like the security issues that have always been in the eastern part of Congo. We have discussed that. We are trying to find ways to resolve those problems. The other day, we were in Nairobi, Kenya, meeting President Tshisekedi, myself, President Museveni, with President Uhuru Kenyatta as our host. And there is another meeting coming tomorrow, day after tomorrow. All these are to look for ways we can address the remaining problems in the Congo that affect Congo, affect the region, but also specifically affect Rwanda. So I can only say there is good progress. I don't have much to worry about.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mr. President. So I want to talk a little bit about the post-genocide period. So in the immediate post-genocide period, you faced looming security threats both over the border in the Congo and then with the growing insurgency in the rural parts of the country. You used a variety of tactics, political, military, hearts and minds campaign development to try to address these security challenges. In your view, looking back, what do you find was effective and what was ineffective? And what do you think was the decisive factor in your eventual victory over the insurgency?
Well, having those different factors looked at like that and dealt with in the same way is helpful. And most of those tactics we have applied have contributed to the success we have achieved. Maybe some might have contributed more than others, but I think there isn't one we think we should not have applied. But the most notable ones are applying military security solutions to the problem, because that's largely what it is, has been helpful, because that was the immediate one, to defeat the insurgency, the armed groups that threaten the stability of our country. That one had to be immediate and focused and decisive. I think that one, and then you deal with the wider issues that are political, that are economic, that are social. These take time, they require resources, they require convincing, they require, so but they are very, very important. In the end, you have to deal with that, and that's what we did. So military, political, security came in first, and then socio-economic, and then relations, how we relate to neighbors, how we benefit one another, and all these come into play, and I think in a combination, they have been very helpful.
Yeah, so in terms of the kind of the priority, the military solution, the decisive military solution to the issue, that was kind of the main priority that you had to deal with. When you were specifically using military tactics to fight the insurgency, right, this took several years to kind of solve the issue. And how do you think why do you think you were successful in your effort, and what was kind of the defining characteristic of that successful military effort?
Well, the only time really it took was because mainly some of the things of the problems were originating from the outside, not based internally. So we didn't have control of the outside. There's no way we could have, other than trying, therefore, to, on the basis of relations we create with our neighbors and others beyond, to try and deal with that. So that at the same time, when any such a problem would cross our border into Rwanda, then that one becomes easier to deal with, and that's what we did. So our approach was focused, it was deliberate, and we were prepared. All along we have been prepared for dealing with matters of security, and that goes way back into our history, the problems we have faced and the solutions we have applied, and the mindset. We've been prepared to deal with such situations.
Hello, Mr. President. Thank you so much for speaking with us. My question relates to the deal that was recently made public between Rwanda and the United Kingdom to process asylum cases and migrants. Why did Rwanda enter into such an agreement, and what does Rwanda stand to gain? And finally, what are the implications of such an arrangement with regards to Rwanda's presence within the international community?
To understand this problem better, we've got to go a little bit into the history. This problem of dealing with immigrants does not start with what we arrived at as the deal between United Kingdom and Rwanda. It may as well, before that, but let me talk about 2018. When we helped to deal with the situation in Libya, where there are so many Africans mainly from different parts of the continent, but a big part from the West African part of the region. And these people were stuck in Libya. They were trying to cross into Europe. Some had already died trying to cross the Mediterranean. Others were kept in prison in Libya, in different cities of Libya. And they were really stuck, including the UNHCR. Everybody who was trying to deal with the problem had got stuck. So at that time, 2018, I was the chairman of the African Union. And when the issue came up to me, I said, well, we are not a rich country, we are not a big country, but there are solutions we can always help find and solve big problems. So we told those international institutions that are trying to deal with the problem and the countries and the UN and so on, that why don't you actually bring these people to Rwanda? And 3 ways of dealing with it. When they come to Rwanda, we can even offer them to stay in Rwanda, because even if our standards of living and so on and so forth may not be the best in the world, nowhere near to that, certainly what we can provide these people is much better than being in a prison in Libya that has no government, that has nothing, and many of them were dying there, and is certainly better than trying to continue to Europe and end up dying in the Mediterranean. He said, certainly our standards would be much better than that. The second thing is they would process these people, those concerned, to take them to countries anywhere that would accept them, but coming from a stable situation like the one we would provide. Or they may even choose to say, we want to go back to our countries where we originated from, because over time we've learned that this is a very difficult situation and so on. We no longer want to go to Europe, or can't certainly want to be in Libya, and therefore they may choose to go back home. That's where it starts really. That's the offer, the deal to solve this problem starts at that time. In fact, the evidence is, right as we speak, there are some of those from Libya who have come in the recent months, and there are others, hundreds of them, that have been processed in these camps in Rwanda and taken to Canada, to different parts of Europe, France, the Scandinavian countries, even UK itself and the US. They've been, that has been happening. So now I think people were observing that, and certainly UK, which has now, like some other countries in Europe, they have problems of migration. And migration complicated even further by people who smuggle these human beings and earn a lot of money from that, and simply keep taking people to whether France, UK, or I have heard others, up to the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, and so on and so forth. So we were approached because of this history and because of what we managed of the Libyan case. And we said, of course, and what they were telling us was clear. They are having people being smuggled into the country. And by the way, here the problem is, there is one aspect of that is always highlighted at the expense of other things that need to be considered. That all these people who are going to Europe or to UK are people being persecuted in their own countries. That is partly true. But it is not all these cases that it applies to. Because some of them, and again here is the case, can afford to pay thousands of euros or dollars or pounds to be smuggled into these countries. Some of them are people with money, actually, or that have no such problems as those that may be persecuted. It's just whoever can pay, then he can find a way. And most of these people are not necessarily people who are bad off, even economically. But it's a mentality issue again. Well, if you asked any ordinary Rwandan or any other ordinary African and say, are you happy here? Do you want to go to Europe? I can give you a way to Europe, or to America, or to Canada. The first choice for these people, they say, yeah, we want to go. Please take us there. Even if they are going to lead worse life there than they actually had. I'm talking about the reality. These are facts. So some people just read newspapers, they see this and make conclusions. I'm telling you the real life of this. So that's how we came to have a discussion with the UK. And what UK is saying, they don't want these people being smuggled into the United Kingdom. They want to have an orderly way of sorting out people they must accept, and others they can say, no, we don't accept. Even when they are here, some of them may actually end up being taken back. Almost similar to that case I mentioned earlier of Libya, where these people are brought from Libya, brought here, and they were sorting them out, and it took time. Some are still waiting. They are on the waiting list. They are here. At least they are here, still alive. They are here being looked after decently, like is affordable, and the international community has been assisting in this. So it would be mistaken for people to just make a conclusion, Rwanda got money. It's not trading. We are not trading human beings, please. This is not the case. We are actually helping. And I've given you the background of where this comes from. And so UK naturally is going to provide resources to actually give some decent living to these people who will be here, as they are processed either to go back to UK, or maybe UK may work with other countries to take some of them, and so on and so forth. So it's a clear-cut issue, and it was actually something of an innovation that Rwanda put forth to deal with these migration issues. And we have other refugees staying here, have stayed here for now decades. Refugees from Burundi, from Congo, from different parts of our region. They are here, we live with them, and some of them we have provided for them, the education, the different things that, of course, nobody wants to be a refugee, nobody should be a refugee. And it's not, even, you can't say, oh, they are well off as refugees. No, even if economically you may look fine, but being a refugee is a different issue.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. President, for taking the time to speak with us. The current situation with the United Kingdom has a precedent in a similar agreement between Rwanda and Israel in 2014, which received a lot of criticism surrounding the safety and treatment of those being sent by Israel, as well as you had sort of touched on, the vulnerability to human traffickers throughout the process. And so what do you anticipate going differently now with the United Kingdom to address these concerns? And could you also speak more on Rwanda's relationship with Israel in general?
Well, first of all, I hope you can get your facts correct. With Israel case, it was not the problem with Rwanda. The problem developed in Israel. because while we were trying to process them, like I have mentioned in other cases, then there came an issue that they were being forced to leave Israel. And in fact, that's what killed the deal, because they were not forced, they were not supposed to force people to come to Rwanda. It was on a voluntary basis. This is what the deal was. This is what we had agreed. And again, what is it that attracted us? Most of these, actually, all of them, were these poor brothers and sisters from Africa. And they had left, most of them, they had left Ethiopia, Eritrea, and some other surrounding countries. And so they were not accepted there. They were being thrown out, in fact, later on forced out. And we said, no, instead of people being caught up in between these forces that wanted them out, and then the laws that say, no, they should be here, and they end up with nothing, we said, these are people we are not, by the way, by any standard, a big country, but we believe we can accommodate as many people as are being thrown out in some places. So, facts, first of all. Facts are whatever happened between us and Israel the problem does not lie with us. The problem lied with how they were being brought, and that's what killed the deal. And I think maybe they did not even bring here 30% of what we had agreed they would bring here, and that's how it stopped. So now, our relationship with Israel, we have a very good relationship with Israel. We have a good relationship. In fact, it is one of our major policies to have good relationship with as many countries as possible. Now, including countries that may, as you may read in the news and wherever, have problems. But some of those problems are those countries' problems, not ours. So, and if we create a good relationship with them, sometimes we even put in a word of good advice, if we can, and it might be helpful because of that good relationship we have created. So with Israel, we have very good relationship, and we work well together in areas of technology, of agriculture, education, and health, and many things like that. And I think the benefits have been clear.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. President. Thank you for taking our questions. I wanted to ask about the Iran relationship with France. You have met now on several occasions with President Macron, and he has apologized somewhat for France's role in the '94 genocide. How would you characterize the current Rwandan-French relationship? Are there any remaining barriers between you? And do you anticipate any changes to that relationship should Le Pen be elected president instead of Macron?
Well, somewhat apology is better than no apology. That's where I start from. I think that was a good start for us to. There have been commissions that were set up by our side, by France, to really get to the bottom of what happened and in Rwanda and by whom. And so that naturally brought in France to put light on their responsibility. So based on that, fortunately, President Macron, I think, comes from a different sort of background in that country. He doesn't carry that much baggage like some politicians do. I think that's what helped him to have a different way of looking at things. And we embraced that and worked with him. And so far, the relationship is going well, and we are making very good progress. We are happy with the relationship we have between us and France. But as you know, there is never a perfect situation. So we are not looking for a perfect situation, because we know that it doesn't exist. But so far, what we have is good enough to continue. Now, about in the case where in the future, near future, to have a President Le Pen. Well, first of all, I think this would be a bigger problem for France than for Rwanda. I think that one, because irrespective of who becomes the president of France, we deal with them as we have to deal with them, and make sure that we remain intact. So I am sure, given her background and what people say about her and what she says about herself, she might be a problem for France, for Rwanda, for Africa, for maybe other Europeans. But again, that's not for me to decide who becomes the leader of any country, later on France.
Hi, Mr. President. Thank you so much for joining us today. I've heard so many great things about you from my mother, Doreen Bogdan, who works at the ITU.
Thank you.
My question for you today was, what do you think Rwanda's next big challenge is?
Well, there will always be challenges. We have them now. There might be, but I think I prefer to see it this way. The biggest challenge to us is the sustainability of good progress that we have already made, and even make going further than we have. Sustainability for me is important. For other challenges, they always come. It's like we had this pandemic. We don't know where it came from, but well, it came and hit us and hit everybody in the world, and each one tried to survive in the space they had. And we did survive that. We managed that. But I don't really see anything completely different from what we've gone through, first of all, and what we have dealt with. And my mind prefers to say, how can we always anticipate, be proactive and sustain what we have identified as good wins we have made over the years.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so so much for speaking with us. It's a pleasure and an honor. Looking forward, the end of your term is coming up in 2024, so we were all wondering, what is your main criteria in choosing a successor in the upcoming elections?
Well, since you're me choosing, or you just mean choosing generally?
Yes. What should the country choose? What do you think the main criteria they should look for?
Well, somebody who, we look at where we have come from, how we arrived at where we are now, and continuing to have a stable country that can continue on a good path for prosperity of our people and unity and the good relations we have with other countries in the region, integration, and so on and so forth. So that should be a person who really deeply understands the management of these issues you have had to deal with, and we shall always deal with for foreseeable future.
Would you ever consider running again?
Yeah, but I don't know. I will see. I'm spoiled for choice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. President. I'm from Sri Lanka, and as you would know, my country went through a 30-year civil war between the Tamil and Sinhalese ethnic groups. And 12 years down the line, our reconciliation efforts are still weak, and there's a stark divide between the two groups. I visited Rwanda in 2016 and saw the tangible impacts of your efforts in the country, and was really impressed. And I just want to seek your advice on what you would say the best thing is for reconciliation in a post-conflict environment.
It's not so much the advice that I would give you that is lacking. Not only in Sri Lanka, but it would be the same case for any other country that may have similar problems. It's about having the leaders and the politics that really works to deliver solutions to these problems. And I think whether it is in Sri Lanka or any other country, theoretically, if they are to be listening to us or in that room or in this one, they would probably be having these possible solutions on their fingertips. But the problem is how now to create a real life around these sort of ideas and the advice, and the people to execute that. So, but I'm sure in Sri Lanka, if you ask so many people, one-on-one, they would tell you what I'm going to tell you or what I have told you. Yes, it's getting to the bottom of the root causes of whatever problem there is, and it will involve give and take from different groups that are party to the problem. You can't have it all your way, but neither should you have nothing your way. So there is that balance to be struck, and it just doesn't happen. You have to have leaders to, to look in the eyes of the problem and deal with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. President. Again, thank you so much for speaking with us. A major component of our seminar has been the discussion of the successes of Rwanda's development program in the wake of the 1994 genocide. What do you see for the future of Rwanda? In 25 years, where do you see the country both socially and economically?
I missed some parts of the question at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying that a major focus of our seminar has been discussing the successes of Rwanda's development project in the wake of the genocide, and where you see the country socially and economically in the next 25 years.
Yeah. You see, from the beginning, Rwanda was at its lowest point in every aspect of life in 1994. Not that we were any better off by far before that, but so we had to start from scratch, and it was complicated. It was actually a complex thing to try and deal with. But social and economic are part of what we have to address. There's no question about it. A hungry person with a disease dying at home, not even a hospital because there are none. And if you have that common in the population, it's a problem. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Nothing else goes through their ears. Nothing, however good you may think that is, until that is. So we concentrated on the politics of saying, no, the basic needs of these Rwandans, the human beings that we are, have to be addressed. And second, we have to bring them around to feel they are not only benefiting, but they are contributing to what they are benefiting from. As human beings, they need to be doing something. So that's how we created institutions and put in place mechanisms and ways of delivery on the message, but also in the real terms, the results. And in fact, the politics became just about that. Our politics became that of trying to make a difference in the lives of our people, in which they participate and in which they feel they are making progress. And I'm not blaming other people for our own problems. There is a lot of that, but we decided to put it aside. It doesn't help. We put aside the blame game, whether it is among us or between us as Rwandans and other people. So that's what we have concentrated on, and I think looking back in the last 28 years, the way people perceive each other, they deal with each other, the way they work together, the young people who have gone to school together in a new situation. So the message has to keep going that, yes, we can be better, we can do better. And what we are trying to leave behind, that to be fair, our country should have no place in our society. And I think it is working. You can see it working. You can see it. Every family that has children is able to send them to school, either by themselves or by the effort of government. People go to those who have illnesses, They have a hospital, they have a clinic, they have a dispensary to go to and get a service that saves their lives. We have food security for our country. We produce now enough food to feed ourselves, to feed our population. In fact, that's how we survived even during the lockdown. The lockdowns we had a number of them. We used to provide food for the vulnerable families, and nobody starved just because there was a lockdown. Because of what progress we have made in agriculture sector, and we have food stocks and so on and so forth.
Mr. President, let me take the privilege of office and ask one last question. Reconciliation has been a major theme of the last 25 years. We've been taught about how far this process has gone, but we've also been told that Rwandans are not so outgoing, they don't always speak what they feel. People may have their own identities that they still guard to themselves, even though they're not able to express them in public. They may even transmit this to their children. Some scholars think it takes 3 generations to overcome the effect of a trauma like what Rwanda went through. So my question is, how deep do you think the reconciliation process has gone? And is there still the kindling for a future explosion?
The reconciliation process has been largely successful. The understanding of the need to reconcile, the practice, and so on and so forth. You can see it, you can feel it. You see here, well, I don't know, some of these scholars, there are different categories. There are those who will speak with authority even when they have not investigated. But we respect their opinion, and especially because they are scholars. But for those who have investigated, as far as I know, they will tell you a different story. And we have had many groups, some that have been sponsored by government to try and give us a thorough picture of what has happened, others independent, others we have known only when they are giving results. I think, and there's also a bit of confusion. Stephen, if you know, there are cultures across not only the continent, but the world. Let's say even one part, let's say Europe, which is known for all good things, freedom, democracy, and so on and so forth. They don't go by one thing. From one country to another, you'll find people who they tell you, oh no, country X, the people are reserved, they don't, then country Y, these are outgoing people, anytime they are just there, happy people will do this. Then you go to another, they say, no, these are violent, they react like this, instant. So people behave differently. Now, I'm surprised because on one hand, we have also been told that even before genocide and so on and so forth, that Rwandans actually are reserved people. They will always listen, they are welcoming people, they listen to what you are saying, but they may reserve comments about you, not because they have nothing they think about you, but just because that's the nature. So I think part of this has come to create some confusion that even with the reserved people that Rwandans are, well, I would by the way, want to think I'm also reserved. Only when you ask me questions, then I'll tell you my mind. But otherwise, I pass without saying anything to you, even when I think of something about you. So, but the progress that has been made on the ground and the way people deal with each other, again, if anyone is looking for a perfect outcome from our efforts, then that person is looking for a wrong thing altogether. There is nothing perfect here. But by that I'm saying there is nothing perfect there. So working with these normal limits of what we are talking about, I think we are in a good place. If anything happens in Rwanda, it would be because of other reasons other than this one, that Rwandans have been denied space. Or no, the country is completely changed, in my view, but we can keep, and as I mentioned to you, we keep testing and re-examining and ourselves to see where have we reached, given where we have come from. We really truly make that effort. But we find individuals, no question about it. Maybe few people here and there. It's like recently during the pandemic, the COVID-19, we had, generally the image we had was actually, now by the way, in Africa, we are the most vaccinated country in Africa. That's for a fact. But we have also had cases of people who refused to be vaccinated. So you always have people, but what we go by is the general thing, that how the majority of our people have been vaccinated, they embraced it, but there are others who stayed in different districts of the country, either because of religion or because of their just personal beliefs. But we shall go by the fact that our people embraced the vaccination and not be detracted by the few who refused. So in the same way, that is the case, I think. There will be people with different views, ideas, and rejection of what has happened, and that's normal. For me, I think it's normal. But the majority, the actual core of our society has changed a great deal for the better.
Well, on that note, we're going to let you go. This has been a fascinating hour. You've got some students here who are already planning to come to Rwanda.
Anytime.
We had a wonderful presentation from Patrick Electoral a couple of weeks ago, so we're on to the security issues. We heard from Francis Guitare, so we know a lot about the domestic issues. And you'll see some of the kids in this room in Rwanda soon, I'm sure.
Please,
Thank you so much.
Please, if they come, give me a call. We might have a cup of coffee together.
Great. We'll take you up on that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.